Oh, it's a good night for a big show. A really good night for a big show because we need to talk 49ers right now. Perhaps the primary inflection point of the 2023 offseason is tomorrow. It's the eve of Brock Purdy's surgery, assuming he actually goes under the knife this time, but I'd be very surprised if he didn't. Swelling has supposedly subsided enough. Dr. Keith Meister is going to operate on Brock, the Dallas Metroplex. And finally, we should have a prognosis after this surgery on Brock Purdy's return timetable. A couple things can happen tomorrow. Keith Meister can get into that elbow, and he brace is not going to be enough. This is going to have to be a hybrid surgery, a hybrid reconstruction surgery with the internal brace. That could mean a timeline that stretches into the 2023 season or even beyond. Or the best news possible can happen. There could have already been a little bit of healing, or the tendon, the ligament might not be fully torn. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on through the MRI, and the internal brace will be enough for Brock Purdy. The internal brace carries a 6-month return timetable. Purdy would be throwing within 2 to 3 months. As you can tell, there's a big difference between those two outcomes. The difference between those two outcomes is so vast that it will dictate how the 49ers play this offseason, especially at the most important position, which is quarterback. It's really important that the 49ers have this surgery on the books before free agency starts so they know exactly how to pursue free agency. We assumed as soon as the season ended that the 49ers would be on the veteran quarterback market, regardless of the timetable for Brock Purdy. They underwent the greatest quarterback injury catastrophe in NFL history on January 29th to close their season in Philadelphia. The 49ers ran out of quarterbacks in an NFC title game. Unprecedented stuff happened on that field in Philly. So as soon as that game ended, we figured that the 49ers would be adding a veteran quarterback because they needed to fortify the room. Since then, though, the Brock Purdy diagnosis has complicated itself. Initially it was thought that he wouldn't be out for that long, and then it was thought that he might be out for longer, and then it was not sure for a long time. So, it's been one of those situations where, yes, I think logic tells us the 49ers have wanted a veteran quarterback throughout this entire process to fortify the room. But what type of veteran do you add? Do you add somebody who's just backup material, pay him the minimum, a little bit over that? Or do you swing a little bit bigger here and toss somebody into the actual competition fray? Because we can't forget about this guy right here, Trey Lance. Trey Lance is definitely going to be in the competition fray. Lance is who the 49ers invested all of those picks in back in 2021. The problem is he's been too hurt to let us know if he's legit or not. The potential's there. The mechanics will need some work, but that work can only happen if Trey Lance is actually able to stay healthy and practice and play. He's going to get that chance this offseason, although he's technically not healthy right now. But what happens with Brock Purdy's surgery tomorrow is going to go a long way in determining who else joins Trey Lance and ultimately Brock Purdy in that 49ers quarterback room. So everything is lining up to be a domino effect. But that first domino is the surgery result. And we need to know if Brock Purdy is going to be internal brace 6 months or if it's going to be a longer recovery for Brock Purdy. So say that it's the bad news for the 49ers tomorrow. Say that it's the longer recovery, hybrid reconstruction. So his availability for the entire 2023 season, or at least a large part of it, is in doubt. What happens then? Well, the guy up on my screen, Trey Lance, would be firmly in the driver's seat. It would be in the same spot that we were in last offseason. Minus, and yeah, I guess the same exact spot because Brock Purdy was still not part of the team until April or May last offseason, till the NFL draft, right? But at this early point of the offseason in 2022, Jimmy Garoppolo was figured to be a goner. He was still under contract, but the 49ers were looking to trade him. He was undergoing a surgery of his own. Trey Lance had been handed the keys symbolically. That had definitely happened. He was the 49ers go-to guy throughout OTAs, and then he was the number one guy throughout training camp. As we know, the 49ers were able to luckily hold on to Jimmy. It was not part of their initial plan. They got lucky. They backed into it. Sometimes you'll take the break. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And they were happy that they were able to hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo because in week 2, when Trey Lance fractured his ankle, he was able to take over and he played really, really well for the 49ers. 7-3 last year while Garoppolo was starting. He put them into position to make the playoffs. Then he himself got hurt, and that's when Brock Purdy was ready to step in against the Miami Dolphins. The 49ers had 3 very effective quarterbacks last year. Unfortunately for them, the fourth quarterback, Josh Johnson, was not nearly as effective. So anyway, if Brock Purdy is out for some crazy amount of time, if it's a hybrid reconstruction surgery, we're right back to square one. We're back to Trey Lance the way that he was in 2022, and that is as the 49ers' top quarterback in the offseason, with a chance to prove what the 49ers, I think, all along have believed that he could prove. You know, this is really starting to annoy me. The Trey Lance gibberish, it's getting old. People, I get it. They're starved for content. They want their clicks online. They want to sound smart. So it always like resurfaces whenever there's some kind of doubt because, you know, there's time to fill. It's not easy to make good, compelling content. It's not easy to hold people's attention on the internet. So, you know, for those who are incapable of doing that, you always have to bring up, oh, they must have wanted Mac Jones instead. Where's the 49ers wanted Mac Jones instead? There is none. The evidence all points to the 49ers really liking Trey Lance, really actually liking his rawness because Kyle Shanahan felt that he could program it, really liking his athleticism, and really looking forward to a chance to develop the guy within the context of his system. The only issue here is the 49ers haven't yet had that chance to truly develop Trey Lance due to injury. Yes, he was extremely raw. The mechanics were an inconsistent issue coming out of North Dakota State, which everybody knew when they picked him. He was still coveted by more than just the 49ers, but everybody knew that. That's why they kept Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021. That was not a mystery. I mean, the problem is that people set false expectations, and then when a situation doesn't go according to their erroneous false expectations, they think that there's some kind of conspiracy up. I told you from day one in 2021 that Jimmy Garoppolo would still be starting in 2021 because no one who knows football in their right mind would have Trey Lance starting coming out of North Dakota State with only a year of experience and a whole year off after COVID in the National Football League for a playoff-ready team in 2021. 49ers' path was obvious in 2021 after they drafted Lance. That was to keep Garoppolo. Their path was obvious in 2022. That was to start Lance, but he got hurt. So there's the obvious plan. And I don't know why people are debating about what the plan would have been, because the plan has been the plan. It was to draft Trey Lance, have him work under Jimmy Garoppolo for a year and then take over. But then there are the diversions from the plan due to injury, which has unfortunately become a staple of 49ers quarterback happenings in the Kyle Shanahan era. And the diversion due to injury, or should I say injuries, plural, has made this complicated. But let's just stop with these stupid conspiracy theories. Lance is going to be back in the position where he was last year, except with the deadline for the 49ers to decide on him a year closer to them. Okay? Trey Lance has 2 years left on his rookie deal. Next offseason, next May, not this May, but next May, the 49ers are going to have to decide on his fifth-year option. So that's coming up quick, right? That puts a lot of pressure on this third season, and especially this offseason, heading into the season, for Trey Lance to really start to show the 49ers what he's all about. The time for talk and for injuries has ended. Another injury would be really unfortunate, but if you're looking at this in the long-term lens, picking up the 50-year option, 49ers need to see it from Lance this offseason. What does he need to improve? Well, he's really smart. Another thing, Trey Lance gibberish, this stupid arguments about the S2 cognitive test. Matt Barrows wrote that fantastic article that very clearly said that Trey Lance scored really well too. And then there's people throwing tomatoes on each other because of this article, because something apparently wasn't worded the way they wanted to word it. Guys, Occam's razor. The simplest way is the way. Trey Lance also scored really well. He's really smart. Kyle Shanahan drafted him because he likes where he decides to go with the football. That's not an issue with Trey Lance. I don't think pocket presence is an issue either. The issue is mechanics, throwing mechanics especially. They're all over the place, so that means his throws are all over the place, and we saw it in training camp. One day really accurate, one day really inaccurate. He's got to get better in rhythm throwing the football, because in Kyle Shanahan's offense, you have to be a distributor. There should be no questions about Trey Lance's intelligence. There should be no questions about his athleticism. The question should be about his mechanical aptitude, the ability to mechanically deliver consistently within the scheme that Kyle Shanahan has drawn up for the 49ers. And that is going to take time. And the 49ers recognized that was going to take time back in 2021 when they traded up to draft him. That's why they kept Jimmy Garoppolo. Will Trey Lance finally get that time this year? We will find out. Obviously, Brock Purdy throws a different wrench into things. When we talk about Purdy, well, tomorrow, that surgery is going to determine so much of his immediate future. This past year is as impressive as he was. He also stepped into the most advantageous position possible for a young quarterback. The offense got rolling under Christian McCaffrey and company. The offensive line gelled. Jimmy Garoppolo did a lot of the, I think, smoothing out work ahead of Brock Purdy, because they were clicking by the time that he stepped in. That first drive where Garoppolo got hurt, it ended on the sack. But remember, there was the big wheel route to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield on that drive. Field goal, 49ers scored, and then Brock Purdy took over, and they just exploded. So, I mean, Purdy stepped into a juggernaut, and he did an admirable job manning the ship. And there was off-schedule stuff galore, but one of the concerns leaving the season was that he was going off schedule a little bit too much. This is going to be a work in progress. Every quarterback's a work in progress, especially if they're working with a coach as particular as Kyle Shanahan. The word coming out of the season with Brock Purdy was, and Greg Cosell, I think, said this best, he didn't know what Brock Purdy was doing in those playoff games, because he was going off of an open first read and making plays more difficult, going to reads 3, going to reads 4. He did that against the Raiders on the George Kittle touchdown. As spectacular as it was, Jawan Jennings was wide open on an out pattern, and he was the first read. Kyle Shanahan wasn't happy about it. So as much as we talk about Trey Lance and his need to mechanically integrate into the 49ers system, which is really particular, which Shanahan wants you to run almost like a robot, we should be talking the same about Brock Purdy. The problem is he's not going to have this offseason to prove it, because he's going under the knife for elbow surgery tomorrow. But that surgery is going to determine when exactly Brock Purdy is going to be able to return back to practice, and the 49ers will be able to start looking to see how he can improve, what needs to be done next for him. The biggest misconception that you could possibly have is that this guy somehow needs to prove more to Kyle Shanahan than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy still needs to prove a whole heck of a lot. 8 or 9 game sample is not enough for a rookie, especially given the weapons that Brock Purdy had last year, for the 49ers to be completely sold on him to the point where they're just going to say, oh, sorry, Trey, we traded the farm for you, but this is Purdy's team now. Again, Purdy impressed the hell out of me last year. He played that point guard position really well for the most part, but experts that know a whole lot more about this than even I do, that's Greg Cosell. Let's put him that way. Greg Cosell, let's put some respect on his name. People are noticing that there's some of this stuff that's a little bit off schedule, a little too off schedule from Brock Purdy. Before he got hurt, he needs to find a way to filter better in, more consistently into the structure of Kyle Shanahan's offense. And that's what you would expect out of a rookie. There's nothing wrong with that in the context of his bigger picture development. But just like Trey Lance up on the screen is going to have to prove a lot, Brock Purdy still has plenty to prove. And obviously the list of things he has to prove has grown longer ever since he tore the UCL. That's just the reality of football. So you've got 2 quarterbacks with something to prove. Both of them still technically hurt, in Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. Where do the 49ers go next? That's the quarterback market. Do they draft somebody? Well, we just found out today that they are going to have 11 draft picks, not just 10. Another comp 7th rounder added to the mix. Maybe they could find the next Brock Purdy, who was actually a comp 7th rounder last season. The reason they were able to pick Brock Purdy is because C.J. Beathard left in free agency to Jacksonville, earned the 49ers a 7. 49ers used that 7, which was the very last pick of the entire draft, on Brock Purdy. So in a really indirect way, C.J. Beathard became Brock Purdy. I feel that's poetic. But the 49ers can use the extra dart that they have, throw it up against the wall, See if it turns into something. You've got Jake Haener out of Fresno State. Is he going to go in the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round? I don't know. Somewhere in the middle. He's tough, and the 49ers love toughness in their QBs. Speaking of CJ Beathard, that's why they drafted him, because of the toughness. So you go from Beathard to Purdy to Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins is a quarterback. Now, I'm not talking about the draft anymore. He was an undrafted free agent, joined the 49ers way back at the start of the tenure of the regime in 2017. But why don't we talk about the potential Nick Mullins reunion this offseason? Because we look at the QB market and respective price tags. And I'm looking at my build the roster tool right now. I have several options here that I put in with Matt Barrows. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo's there. We have guest price tags on some of these, by the way. Why don't I pop this open on the screen? It'll be a lot easier. If we go to the 49ers, build your roster sheet, drag this onto here, make it nice and wide. As you could see, got Lance, got Purdy. All right, so say that it's, Garoppolo. Obviously, I don't think that that's a realistic option now. Why not? Well, mainly because of cost. Even if they backload his deal, even if they find some tricks, it's going to be like a $20 million cap hit at least for Jimmy Garoppolo. So you immediately rule that out. Matt Ryan, I think you can probably get Ryan for 10. They say he's washed. I would have to agree to a certain extent. Obviously, he doesn't have that arm pop that they used to have. Go to somebody like Jacoby Brissett. Maybe you get him for around 8. That's a backup price. Teddy Bridgewater, we have him at 6.5. It, might be more expensive than that. I mean, but even at 6.5 or $5 million, these are expensive prices for the 49ers, who are, relatively limited on that salary cap space. Andy Dalton, they were really interested in Andy Dalton 2 seasons ago. That was in 2021. That was before they decided to make the trade up for Trey Lance. They were considering bringing in a veteran to supplement Jimmy Garoppolo, who had dealt with all those injuries. Andy Dalton was that name, but Andy Dalton priced himself out of the 49ers market. Baker Mayfield, about $5 million. They didn't put in a waiver claim on Baker Mayfield, though. I know that this year, I know they believed a lot in Purdy, but the fact they didn't even put in a claim might hint at what the 49ers think of Baker Mayfield, even though that name has been rumored. We have him at $5 million. How about, where am I at? Sam Darnold, $4 million. A lot of coaches have loved Sam Darnold's athleticism and potential, but still hasn't really shown through in an efficient way on the football field. Marcus Mariota, to me, would be really interesting if he wants to continue playing. I mean, this is a guy who played in Arthur Smith's system in Atlanta. They ran the hell out of the football, play action. Although they weren't like the 49ers in that they were throwing short. When they ran play action, when Mariota did throw, because it wasn't that often that he did throw, he did, this was a run-heavy team for the Falcons. His average depth of target was one of the highest in the league. He was throwing downfield. So it was run, shot, run, shot for the Atlanta Falcons. And I thought that Mariota against the 49ers managed it fantastically. It was 13 of 14. That's what the 49ers saw up close. He has the body type and the skill set that, to me, is reminiscent of Trey Lance. 6'4", can move. Lance is not Jalen Hurts. He's not Lamar Jackson. Those guys are all faster. But Mariota is not the very, very fastest quarterback, especially at, a little bit older now. This is not his Oregon days. But he beat the 49ers with his legs. He's able to deliver enough with his legs to be a threat in that regard. And I think that's what the 49ers want out of Trey Lance ultimately. They want to polish the mechanics so he can run the play action game, deliver from the pocket, do all that good stuff, distribute the football, play point guard, but also add the element of mobility that Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan have both enjoyed previously in their coaching careers. Anyway, Mariota would be a little bit cheaper, but then the question is he willing to be a backup? Is he willing to maybe even be QB3? Because there's a practice squad demotion risk inherently there. Maybe somebody like Mason Rudolph would be more open to that since he's been tugged around a little bit in Pittsburgh. Taylor Heineke, interesting. He played well against the 49ers, I thought, this year, but ultimately started to get beat up a little bit too much as that game went along. Nate Sudfeld, I think he'd definitely be okay with being a backup. This is closer to the minimum salary. And, we have the Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers options, but we could go ahead and ignore those for right now. I picked and I typed in Nick Mullins because I needed in my roster, I needed more cap space. I couldn't afford to go $5 or $6 million for a QB3. I needed more room, and I went with Nick Mullins. And, I think I posed the question this afternoon when I was talking on the show. Would the 49ers have won the NFC Championship game had Nick Mullins come in instead of Josh Johnson? And the answer, probably not. But they would have had a hell of a better chance than if Josh Johnson had come in. So that's what you have to weigh. You're not usually going to be as lucky as the 49ers were last year to have three really legitimate quarterbacks. They kept that run going for a long time as a result. They finally found the edge. If you push the edge long enough, eventually you're going to find it. They found the edge in the NFC Championship game at QB number 4. It is unrealistic to think that a team is going to have 4 winnable quarterbacks. Replicated this year, just in case you got to dip further at pool. Now, the thing is, if Purdy's surgery news is terrible tomorrow, well, then you're looking at the 49ers can't just get Nick Mullins. Then I think you have to spend a little bit more. Then you have to make a bigger splash. Because if it's just Trey Lance and Brock Purdy out, who's out until 2024 or late until 2023, well, you can't go to a no-name. You can't go to a backup caliber only guy in case Trey Lance doesn't work out or gets hurt. You're going to want somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, maybe Marcus Mariota, so somebody who, can legitimately come in and win a few games for the football team. So that's what the 49ers are balancing. All right, cool. So there's the roster. Close that. Go to the comment section. And why don't we open up this? A little bit of a 49ers Q&A. Let's have some fun with this. The rain, I believe, is coming down. Got a beautiful view of downtown San Francisco right in front of me. So I am teaching a seminar here in San Francisco tomorrow morning on sports writing. So quick little stop here in downtown. The Journalism Association of Community Colleges, a combined conference between the Associated College Press and the Journalism Association of Community Colleges. And they asked me to come and speak there, so it should be fun. Okay, 49ers Q&A. Toss your questions in. Let's go through them. Randy Daytona said he saw an arc outside. I got this engagement party, my engagement party on Saturday at a winery. It's going to be raining. We're going to be under the overhang, though. But, we thought when we booked this back in months ago, like, okay, March, California, we'll be fine. Not the year for it, though. On April 6th, the month before my wedding, which is going to be out in Tennessee, we're going to bury a bottle of bourbon because supposedly when you do that, it won't rain. We didn't bury a bottle of bourbon ahead of the engagement party, but I don't think that it counts for an engagement party. I think it only counts with the rain. What round is Jake Haener, the Fresno State quarterback, projected to go? I've heard anywhere between 3rd and 6th for Jake Haener. So I think that, maybe he doesn't like being compared to Brock Purdy. He said that in an interview with Vic Tafer, who works for us at The Athletic. But I think Brock Purdy's success might help Jake Haener move up a little bit in the draft. People see a hard-nosed quarterback. He's tough. Like, we've seen the toughness from Jake Haener when he played with that hip injury against UCLA. So there might be a team that thinks, okay, yeah, we got some moxie here. We can work with that. How do I think that the wide receiver depth chart is going to shake out behind the top 2 guys? Well, Juwan Jennings is going to sign his tender. So that's number 3. You got Samuel, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod, Danny Gray, right? I don't think it's that complicated. I think receiver is one of those positions where if the 49ers use a lower round draft pick on somebody, Michael Wilson out of Stanford, I think was in my mock draft. That's somebody you probably stash on the practice squad if you like him. throughout the offseason, or, injuries always do happen. I talked about it a little bit earlier today, though. Colton McKivit's not necessarily the starter at right tackle. The 49ers still have a lot of construction to do of that O-line room this offseason. Re-signing McKivitz to a 2-year deal was just part of it. And a lot of people are getting it twisted. The fact that it's a 2-year deal is not evidence of the 49ers looking at McKivitz as a starter. In fact, it might be the opposite. The RFA, restricted free agent tag, second round tag, would have been $4.3 million. That would have been a little bit steep for just 1 year. By signing McKivitz to 2 seasons and foregoing that RFA tag process, the 49ers saved money. So McKivitz is part of the mix now, but they're not giving out starting right tackle jobs on March 9th. That's something that's going to be earned over the course of this offseason and then camp. So I proposed keep McKivitz. This was before the move happened today. In my roster builder, I proposed keep McKivitz, sign a cheaper veteran like Billy Turner, who's been good in a similar system. Let him battle it out, see what happens. Strengthen numbers along the offensive line. You're going to need it. You might as well bring in guys who have a chance to start, because that means that you're going to raise the level of everybody else. So we're just going to have to see how the 49ers continue building the line, but they were able to save some money through the method of re-signing McKivitz today. Who will be this year's Charvarius Ward type signing for San Francisco? Well, in my roster builder, I didn't have one like that. I didn't have a $14 million a year guy. I went with smaller signings. We can go there and check it out. I have the sheet here. Why don't we see what I did, just so I could, in a way it is my prediction. So I could pop it open on the screen. Then I'm going to show you my lunch here from downtown San Francisco today. So stay tuned for that. It was really good. It involved lobster, by the way. So yeah, here you go. This is you see Nick Mullins in there up on the right. See who my biggest signing was. I think my biggest signing actually might have been Robbie Gould at $4.9 million. Remember, Charvarius Ward was $14 million a year. That was more pricey. I didn't have room for stuff like that. I decided to, spread out the love elsewhere. I was able to get Jimmy Ward back at $4 million per year at nickel, only because he mentioned on Monday that he'd be open possibly to playing nickel the 49ers. First I'd heard that, so went with that. I re-signed Tashawn Gibson for $3 million. I brought in Justin Houston for $4 million. Went budget with the rest of the line, re-signed guys like Kerry Hyder for the minimum, Maurice Hurst for the minimum. And, I felt a little bit uneasy about the interior line, but I used a draft pick there, one of my most valuable ones on that. Went budget with Billy Turner along the offensive line. I tendered Colton McKivitz as a restricted free agent, but as we know, that's going to be less money than the $4.3 million because the 49ers bypassed the tender process. So that opens up a couple more million. Maybe it would have allowed me to get a better quarterback than Nick Mullins, but that's what I did. I went with Nick Mullins, and the rest was history. Also used a draft pick on a tight end. So, there doesn't necessarily have to be a Charvarius Ward type signing. When this offseason first started, I said, okay, maybe they're going to do that at defensive tackle because they were really lacking there last year. Then I asked John Lynch about it at the combine, and, they're really putting a lot on Drake Jackson to be good at edge rusher, and they think him plus Nick Bosa on the edges is really going to help elevate the defensive tackles. And, they're talking a lot about Kalia Davis. They're talking a lot about potential 1-year signings. Lynch specifically said short-term signings when I talked to him. Made me think, okay, they're not going to be in on the Javon Hargrave sweepstakes. And, maybe this is why. You look at somebody like Hargrave, if I put him into this lineup, look what the cap situation. Top left, $3.22 million. Here we go. Select Hargrave. Oh, God. We're $15 million over the cap. Over the cap. So not really the most sustainable way of doing business if you're going out and getting these extremely expensive players. All right. So today's lunch with Lombardi was this: the Lobster Club sandwich at the Rotunda atop Neiman Marcus on Union Square. I'm going to pan back down to the sandwich, and then we're going to play it one more time. So there's the lobster sandwich. It was awesome. Now, if you're wondering what the Rotunda is, this is Neiman Marcus, otherwise known as Needless Markups, Union Square, San Francisco, right there at the corner of Geary and Stockton. You take the elevator up, or you can take the escalators up, and on your way up, see all the overpriced stuff in the store. And then you get to the rotunda. This is definitely not an overpriced view. And the lobster sandwich, it wasn't cheap. $42. $42 for this. But it had a lot of lobster on it, and it was really good. And by the way, we're going to go back to it. Those are truffle fries. I got to take off that text title. So there you go. There's the Lobster Club, a lot of avocado, really well toasted bread. And then in the background, as we pan back down right there, those are truffle fries in the background. So it was really good. Lunch with Lombardi at the Rotunda. Not the type of place where I was all too comfortable taking out a iPhone and filming myself talking about the 49ers. A little white table coffee. Although I did bring my laptop, I did write most of today's article at the Rotunda in Union Square. All right, that was Lunch with Lombardi. Let's get back to talking about the QB market, price tags, and maybe 49ers Q&A. Question line is open. They better be truffle fries. Hell yeah. Bucks. I was about to get the avocado after too, but I didn't want to over caffeinate myself, so I just got tea instead. It used to be called. Did it used to be called City of Paris? I didn't know that. That's awesome. The Rotunda used to be. Well, I'm not sure if that's true, but I trust Luke Wall. She's on the show a lot. Yeah, lobster and avocado was really good. Do I think the Lamar situation will drag out? Well, it can't really start until next week. It already has dragged out, right? It's dragged out for like a year with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens not meeting, any common ground in the contractual situation. I said it yesterday as soon as it happened. The Ravens did this because they just want other teams to do their work for them. They have a number in mind for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has a number in mind for himself. Those two numbers aren't anywhere close to each other, probably because of the fully guaranteed money. And there's an impasse. The Ravens obviously don't want to give up Lamar Jackson. So they say, hey, here's a number, $32 million, non-exclusive tag. It means you could go negotiate with other teams. Go see what you're really worth, Lamar. Go out there, try to get an offer. We'll see who offers. And then we'll just match it. Unless it's absolutely absurd. Unless the offer is crazy, then the Ravens won't match it, in which case they'll get the 2 first-round picks in return. That's how the non-exclusive tag works. So you get the negotiation free from the current logjam by having other teams have permission to speak with Lamar Jackson. But I think that the Ravens are set to match most any offer that comes Lamar Jackson's way. Because, first of all, I don't think that anybody in the league is, the Browns were dumb enough to guarantee all that money to Deshaun Watson, but I think that might have been the high watermark for the time being of these quarterback contracts, the fully guaranteed $230 million. Because at some point it gets ridiculous, right? At some point you're offering a player who's not guaranteed to stay available, not guaranteed to stay healthy. And Lamar Jackson finished the last 2 seasons hurt. At some point, you are offering him so much money that you compromise the structure of the rest of your team. Especially with these fully guaranteed deals, there's no wiggle room, right? There's zero wiggle room. So when you do that, then is it really worth it to pay the guy that much money? Because then you're just having a glorified quarterback and a bunch of scrubs around him because you can't pay everybody else. I think that's going to end up really biting the Browns here in the next few years. And we don't even know how good Deshaun Watson's going to be again. It wasn't great when he came back last year, so we'll see how it goes in 2023. In the case of Lamar Jackson, one could argue that his best football's behind him. One could also argue that his best football's ahead of him, but you could certainly say that nobody's sure which it is. And if that's the case, I don't know if there's going to be that many teams rolling the dice at the level that the Ravens won't be willing to match, right? So this whole thing, it's a technique for the Ravens to have other teams do their negotiating for them. Cool. The original building was the City of Paris. Luke Walsh's mom used to shop there. In the old days, somewhere else. I don't know. I think right here. From the City of Paris Dry Goods Company. was one of San Francisco's most important department stores from 1850 to 1976. Oh, cool. Well, that's why, I mean, look how beautiful it is, that stained glass ceiling. That's awesome. I certainly had a good sandwich there. It was great. The Lobster Club sandwich. Oh boy. Go and get it at the Rotunda, formerly City of Paris. I don't think the 49ers are willing to let Brandon Ayuk go. Listen, this team is trying to get better now. If you let a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who's your best man coverage beating wide receiver, go, you're not getting better right now. You're getting worse right now. With Ayuk, it's possible because it wouldn't cost you money to let him go. With Deebo Samuel, it's absolutely stupid to talk about a trade there. That would cost the 49ers $28 million in cap space when they don't have enough. I mean, we can go to the sheet. This is kind of funny. Check this out. So say that we wanted to trade Deebo Samuel. Look what happens to the cap room at the top. 3.22 million. I trade him. Oh, crap. You lose over $20 million by trading Deebo Samuel. These are why these rumors are so stupid. That's why I do the factor cap videos. I love the factor cap videos, by the way. I miss doing those. Maybe I'll do another one here coming up soon. Factor cap. And by the way, if you don't know what I play during factor cap, I think I have it on my, I have it on my other computer. Don't have it on this one, which I have with me on the road. The factor cap video might be my favorite video of all time, but you'll see it soon. It'll be good. Yep, Ayuk is one of the core players for the team, at least for this next year. Come on, you could do better than that. Eating McDonald's in San Francisco is one of the best food cities in the world. There's been a lot of places, unfortunately, that have closed, but you know, if it weren't, I could leave the hotel, head down to the Mission, get a good burrito tonight. Maybe I will, but this city has got so much to offer food-wise. The diversity, the fact that it's, you know, in the location that only a culinary capital would be, with the Central Valley and all of its fresh ingredients a drive away, Napa Valley so close. Eating McDonald's in San Francisco is the biggest waste of time and money that I've ever heard of, because even if McDonald's is cheap, you're still wasting your money by going there when you have so many other options. Go to Taqueria Cancun. Next time you're tempted to go to McDonald's in San Francisco, go to Taqueria Cancun, 19th and Mission. Get the carne asada super burrito. Corner Cafe in Visalia, California. Great. Tea with honey, by the way. It's not liquor. Shanahan is a really good coach. He's good at the positionless skill position stuff, that's for sure. They've built a lot of flexibility into the offense through that. The 559 is representing. I'm heading that way tomorrow. Heading down to the 559. I'm going to take the train from the Bay Area to Fresno. My car is in the Central Valley right now, my California car. I don't drive my car between Tennessee and California. So the California one is currently in Visalia. It's gonna meet me in Fresno tomorrow. Gonna be good. Steve thinks that La Taqueria is the best, which a lot of people do think. That one won best burrito in the nation a few years ago. That's at 25th and Mission. They don't have rice though, and I believe a super burrito needs to have rice in it. That's my thing with La Taqueria. Smuggler is one of the best, if not the best, tiki bar in the world. Fun fact, tiki bars, Smuggler's Cove is in types of rum. Tiki bars essentially started in San Francisco. Fought in the Pacific Theater in World War II. When World War II ended, their port of entry and exit was San Francisco. That was before it turned into such a big military city. So they wanted to drink the way that they did out in the Pacific. So they came back and they converted the basement pool of the Fairmont Hotel, which is still there up on Nob Hill, into a tiki bar called the Tonga Room, which is generally considered the first tiki bar as we know it in the Western world. And then you had a bunch of other tiki bars sprout up after that. Trader Vic's in the Bay Area. They're all in the Bay Area. Smuggler's Cove, much newer deal, but again, over 600 types of rum. Serious kind of place. Awesome. It's like you're on a pirate ship. You walk in, you go downstairs. They got 3 levels. They've got the basement. They've got the ground floor. They've got the upper floor. Smuggler's Cove is a cool spot. Superior Dairy has gone downhill in Hanford. That's too bad. I love Superior Dairy. Do I like the young corners the 49ers have? Diamond Lenore for sure. He finished the season off really well. As far as Ambry Thomas, we didn't hear from him much this year. So that might have been a little bit of a regression. I mean, at least relative to Diamond Lenore was. Samuel Womack did a really good job on special teams this year. They're going to be asking him to take another step forward. That's going to be a big one to look at. You know, I let Emmanuel Mosley walk in my roster builder, but you know, now that I look at it, I would have enough money to bring him back. Let's add him to mine. First off, let's not trade Deebo Samuel. Let's go over here. Let's, instead of Dante Johnson, let's bring in Emmanuel Mosley, 3.5. See, I have just enough money to bring back Emmanuel Mosley. Nice. Both him and Dante Johnson coming off of ACLs. So yeah, I think the ACL is going to make Mosley more affordable. The thing, though, is that it was a fairly clean ACL. I think that recovery is going well, which might actually, you know, help him in the free agent market so he doesn't have to sign a total prove-it deal. Because E-Man was playing really, really good football before he went down in Week 5 against the Carolina Panthers. San Francisco, definitely. I mean, San Francisco is one of the best foods, again, in the world. It literally is. It's hard to compete with California because of the fresh produce, the fresh fruit. I mean, we have meat here too. You have everything in California, seafood. It's at this great spot of the food trade, right? This great location. And then it's just an established city as far as the restaurant scene. Nashville is coming on hot, though. Nashville is booming right now. A lot of people from California and San Francisco are moving out there. So you're going to have a little bit of both. And there you're going to have the best place in Nashville is a place called Shohan. You know, I love Indian food. And Indian food is a hybrid too, British food, like chicken tikka masala. Shohan takes the Indian food and the British Indian food and mixes it with Southern meat, like Southern flair. So this Southern Indian hybrid, which is really cool. So anywhere that you're at, you're going to be able to have a different type of mix based on the geography and the history of the food, which is really neat. Hydrofuel likes Tony's Pizza in North Beach. Fortune cookie invented in Chinatown. Yeah, the Fortune Cookie Factory. Yeah, in a way, I agree. I mean, Garoppolo was a little bit more efficient than Purdy last year, and the efficiency is probably the best measure of complementary football. But again, Jimmy's too expensive for the 49ers. That's why, like, people try to make drama out of this and like, oh, what's wrong with Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo? Well, of course, there was some, I did a video about this too. Yes, there are bound to be some hard feelings. And it was more just Jimmy Garoppolo wanting to get out of this situation. He wants to go sign for more money elsewhere where he's a little bit more appreciated in a spot where they're constantly trying to replace him. But the partnership worked really well while Garoppolo was healthy and he was there. So it's hard to argue with how well the 49ers played while Garoppolo was QB before he got hurt this past season. Punchline Comedy Club. No, yeah, good spot. Yeah, I think the 49ers definitely need to draft a tight end. Even if you're counting on Werner's development, you're going to need a third guy. And you want that third guy to become your second guy. My mock draft has the 49ers taking a tight end with one of their 3 third-round picks. All right. That's enough for me. Show has peaked in viewers. Brock Purdy's surgery is tomorrow. That's going to be a big hinge point in determining the direction of this 49ers offseason. So be ready for that. Be ready for a lot of 49ers quarterback talk and the offshoot of that. That's going to determine the way that they go. They hit the road sign tomorrow. Which way do they turn depends on how long Brock Purdy's recovery is going to be. And we should find out at least a prognosis in tomorrow's surgery. So I'll keep you up to date. I promise. Everybody, thanks for watching. Like the video, sub to the channel. Oh, and if you want to build your roster, build your own 2023 49ers right here, go to the link that I am copying and pasting into the chat section and sub to the Athletic. Least you can do. Least you can do, sub to the Athletic. I'm sitting here for hours talking Niners for you. You get it for free. Athletic, you pay like $1 or $2 a month. But I built a literal roster building tool for you where you could do all of the stuff. You could do all of this. Cut, trade, build a team. Send it to me on Twitter at Lombardi himself, and we'll talk over there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take